Let's go and dive into the top 5 formulas for applications of trigonometry. Now, these formulas are designed for a pre-calculus classroom, but if you're in Algebra 2 or if you're in calculus, these formulas could be very, very beneficial to you as well. So it's a good little review, especially if you have a test or a quiz coming up, or if you're just about to learn applications of trigonometry, then you're going to want to know what formulas you need to focus on to make sure that you understand them as well as remember them when that test came up. Now, in reality, I actually always gave my students these formulas. I didn't force them to memorize them. However, I was very pro making sure the students did enough practice so they didn't have to rely on the formula sheet. But anyways, let's go into the formulas for applications of trigonometry. The first one is going to be the law of sines. Now, when going through the law of sines, I'm not only just going to give you the formula, but I also want to give you a little bit of tips that you can use to understand how to apply it. So the law of sines is on a textbook definition is going to look like this. A over sine of A equals B over a sine of B is equal to a C over a sine of C. Okay, so these are a proportion basically between the side lengths as well as the sine of your angles. But you're not going to use all 3 of them at a time, right? You're only going to use a proportion, which is one ratio equal to another ratio. An important thing about the law of sines is it works this way as well as working in this inverse way. If I did sine of A over A, that's also going to be equal to the sine of B over little b and sine of C over little c, okay? Now, the difference between these two, and what I always tell my students is whatever you have an unknown, if your unknown is a side length, then make sure you use this formula. If your unknown is an angle, then go ahead and use this formula. You don't have to. And if you just remember one of the ways, that's perfectly fine. But I always think it's helpful. It just reduces an extra step. Now, when do we use the law of sines? We're going to use the law of sines when we have information for what we call an oblique triangle as angle, side, angle, or we have angle, angle, side. So that's going to look something like this. If we have an oblique triangle, which is a non-right angle triangle, and we have like angle, side, angle, or if we had something that looked like this, and we had angle, angle, side, okay? So the important thing on this one is since you already have 2 angles of a triangle, we know we can subtract these 2 angles from 180 to get this angle, right? So whenever you're using law of sines, you always have to have an angle and its opposing side length. That is going to create your ratio that you need for your proportion, all right? And again, we're only going to use 2 of these. So it all depends on what information you're given, and you're just going to create one proportion. So like, for instance, just be like A over a sine of A equals a C over a sine of C. And typically what you're going to have is 3 pieces of information, and you're going to have 1 unknown, and then you can just go ahead and solve for them. It's pretty straightforward, pretty basic. Once you get through some examples, you kind of realize the law of sines is actually one of probably your favorite formulas to remember and apply. But there is a caveat to it. And the caveat to the law of sines is going to be the ambiguous case. All right. Now, the reason why the ambiguous case is going to be the caveat to the law of sines is because it makes things so much more difficult. But there is a formula that I want you to remember for the ambiguous case. And that is going to be H is equal to C times the sine of A. All right. Now, whenever I'm dealing with the ambiguous case, I always like to write my triangle like this. I'm always going to have it an oblique triangle, just like this. And whatever my angle is, I don't care if it's H, K, or not K, H, but I don't care if it's X, Y, Z, C, or B. I always rewrite it here as A. All right. And then this would be my little a. This would be my C. This would be my little c, big B, and little b. Now, the ambiguous case is going to come from when we have side-side angle. All right, so that's going to look something like this, side-side angle. And yes, if you rewrite it, it'll say a nice little funny word. So technically what we're going to have here is this piece of information. All right, let me go and erase this. So in this case, we do actually have an angle and its opposing side length and another sine. So a lot of times students will be like, all right, well, let's pretend, what are we trying to find? We're trying to, we'll be trying to find like a missing angle C, right? So we'd say something like this. So you'd have a proportion. So you could say sine of C over little c equals, this would be our unknown, and then over like sine of A over A, right? So we could create the law of sines, but this is what we call the ambiguous case. And the reason being, ladies and gentlemen, is because we don't have enough information with side, angle, angle to determine if this is the only triangle, or if there are two triangles that exist, or no triangles that exist. All right, that is where this formula is going to come into play. So the reason why this formula could work, because again, we don't know what this angle is, so that's why that could work. So let me go and show you how this formula works. So let's go and redraw everything back again. And then I'm going to draw in my h, which would be the height of the triangle, right? So h would be something like this. Okay, now that is creating a perpendicular line with our base, all right? And that's important because that creates a right triangle. And that is what exactly we need here to be able to identify what the value of h is. If you think of like the trig functions, sine, cosine, tangent, right? The sine of my angle A is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. And then if we solve for h, that is where we get the h equals c times sine of A. Now, why is this information so important? Well, because, ladies and gentlemen, if we know this formula and we can calculate the value of the height, then we can determine if we have one, two, or no triangles. If h is equal to my A, right, this opposing side length, then we're going to have one right triangle. If my h is greater than my A, that means my A is going to be less than my h, then guess what? There is no triangle that exists. Then, if I also have my A is greater than my C, then we have also one oblique triangle. So we could say that's one triangle. And then the case that we never want to deal with is if my A is going to be larger, oops, oh, that's writing it really bad, sorry. If my A is larger than my H, but less than my C, then we have two cases. So what that means is we're now going to have to redraw, and that'd be kind of like this. If you have this oblique triangle here, but then you have the larger one right there. So in that scenario, you would have to solve both of the cases, or at least depending on what the directions are. But for how the information that you are given, it's not enough information for you to solve or to know that it's which triangle is correct. So therefore, you would have to be able to solve all the information for both of them. And every single time that I teach that in the class, it would take like almost the whole period, right? So we just didn't get through a lot of examples. And it can be confusing with students, but that's why I think knowing this formula can just be very beneficial. And working through a couple of examples, with that, and it becomes much more familiar to you. Now, just like we have for the just like we have the law of sines for an oblique triangle, that's only going to cover, like I said, side angle, ambiguous case, angle side angle, and angle side. The other formula that we can work with to solve the missing parts of a oblique triangle is going to be the law of cosines. Now, there's a lot of different ways to remember, or a lot of different formulas or iterations of the law of cosines. The only formula that I remember for the law of cosines, again, this is just ingrained in my brain, is simply going to be c squared equals a squared plus b squared. I always remember whatever angle I have here, these two are just going to be added, and then minus, repeat these two, 2ab, and then cosine of this first angle, c. Now, you can rearrange this. It doesn't matter what information you're given. For instance, if you're given like an oblique triangle, and the information you need to solve for is going to be actually, let's go through the types of triangles we could use this for. I'll do that first. So the first one would be if we had side, angle, side. So we had a side, an angle, and a side. Or we could also use the law of cosines to find the missing parts if we had side, side, side. All right. Now, here's the thing though. Let me just kind of give an example of, let's say I had something like this, and let's go ahead and do side, 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 and let's do A, B, or actually, let me write them in like A is equal to 5, B is equal to 7, and let's do C is equal to 2, okay? Just making up some numbers. But the important thing that I want you to be able to do is I want to give you some tips. And when you're doing the law of cosines for side, 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 always find the angle that has the largest, that would be the largest. Then you can go and use the law of sines and not have to worry about the ambiguous case. So in this example, I would have to go and solve for angle B, right? That's the angle I'm going to want to solve for because the opposing side length is always going to show you what the largest angle is going to be, right? If you have the largest side, is going to have the largest angle. So you always want to find the largest angle with the law of cosines when it's side, 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 because then you don't have to worry about the ambiguous case, because the ambiguous case says it could be an acute angle or it could be an obtuse angle. But if you already found the largest angle, you don't have to worry about there being a larger angle in there for the obtuse angle. So in this example, I'm trying to solve for angle B. Well, what do you do if you only memorize this, right? So I have this memorized, but all I simply do is I just rewrite everything. So now, instead of using C, I'm just going to use B. So I'll do this as B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2 times A times C times cosine of B. So do you kind of see how I just flip everything to fit exactly what I need? And then again, there is a formula for the law of cosines to solving for your angle B, but I just prefer to use this formula. It's easy to remember, and then just use the algebra and my calculator to be able to find the missing angle B. Now, when you're doing side angle side, there is a little tip I want to give you on that one too. So you're going to go ahead and use the law of cosines, and that's going to give you whatever this angle is. So let's say this is big C, and then this one would be little c. So you're going to find the angle C. Now you have created a proportion. So you can use the law of sines to find these other two missing angles. But which one should you choose? Well, for side, 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 you always want to choose the largest angle first. For side angle side, when you want to go into law of sines, you want to choose the smallest of the two angles. Why? Well, let's pretend that this is 7 and this is 9. Okay, and you find this angle, now you have this proportion. I want to be able to determine what this angle is, because in the ambiguous case, it's going to give, you're given the acute angle, but then you always have to check for an obtuse angle, right? Well, if this side length is smaller than that side length, then I know that this angle has to be smaller than this angle. So there's no way that the ambiguous case or a larger obtuse angle is possible if I'm finding the smaller of the two angles first. Again, guys, I have a lot of examples of these and videos to explain this in a little bit deeper, but I wanted to give you a little bit more of tips than just then going over the formulas for you. So, but those are your two kind of tips for the law of sines. Now let's get into the next one, which is going to be the area of an oblique triangle. Now, for the area of an oblique triangle, most students remember just the area of a right triangle, or actually of any triangle, is going to be 1/2 base times height. Okay, so if you have the base and you have the height, then you're good to go. Now, again, could you find the height of the triangle? Yeah, I showed you how to find the height here, right? So you actually could work through that and going, you have C times sine of A. But actually, if you think about these formulas, it's the exact same thing. This height here was, remember, C times sine of A. So if I want to find the area, I have 1/2, and then all I'm simply going to do is I'm going to do B times C times a sine of A. So really what you're doing is just multiplying, let's pretend this is going to be one of the side lengths, times the other side length, times 1/2, times sine of A. Because again, that's going to give you that height of whatever you're determining a side length is going to be a base, okay? So again, I just refer to, you pick one side, and again, you can rearrange these just like the law of cosines, right? If you're given an angle C, then these two side lengths are going to be A and B, right? If you're given angle B, then these two side lengths are going to be C and A, okay? So just rearrange it however you need to be able to fit, and it really is just a plug and chug. It's not too bad. Now, the last one is going to be Heron's formula. Now, Heron's formula, I always kind of determined was like a gimme for students if they could remember it. And I didn't want my students to remember this formula, but I wanted them to go through a couple examples. And if you go through a couple examples, it's not too bad. S equals A plus B plus C divided by 2. Now, where is S going to come from? Well, S is inside this formula. And that area is going to be, or sorry, the formula for Heron's formula is going to be S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. Now, you're going to use Heron's formula when you don't have an angle. So particularly when you have something like that's a side, 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 like A, B, C. So if you don't have an angle to work with, you can't use this original formula here, then you can go ahead and use Heron's formula. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll make sure this is in a printout that you can go ahead and download and study and remember for your upcoming test, or just to review at any point you want to. If you want to look at any videos of where I go in deeper and go through examples of each of these formulas, then check out the description or the next video I have for you here. Cheers.